Hi, it's Dory with Taitland Studio. In some of the previous videos, you've probably seen a bunch of scrap wood here. Well, today I'm going to get rid of a bunch of it and make some coasters. I begin by just sorting through the pile. Now there's a bunch that are really useful and there's some that are probably not so good, so I'm just going to pick through those and find the best pieces. I have a combination of some alder, some red oak, some pine, and some ash. After picking through all the different pieces I've had, I'm just taking them over to the miter saw and just setting them to all about the same length. Now each of the coasters I'm aiming for about 4 inch by 4 inch, so the overall length that I am cutting them is probably about 17, maybe 18 inches, just to give myself enough wiggle room so that if they are a bit wider, I've got enough to make a perfectly square coaster. And since those pieces are all so even, I'm just taking them to the jointer and just flattening the face and then the other side. And now that they've been jointed, I'm just taking them over to the planer and flattening them out. Because these were end cuts on long boards for a table, there's quite a bit of unevenness, so I am having to spend quite a bit of time on the planer here. And once all those pieces have been cut down, reduced, I'm just sorting them out here, trying to get them all to the same length, and yeah, just setting them out, getting a good pattern, and just checking the width, and we'll end up just gluing them and clamping them together. And the clamping is a bit of a finicky process here. Now I did use some F-clamps. If you do have clamps that have a flat bottom, maybe parallel clamps or bar clamps or something like that, I would suggest using those instead. It's a little bit easier to work with, but I did manage to get them, so if you just have some squeeze clamps or F clamps, they'll still work just fine. Once I've given them a couple hours to dry, I'll just unclamp them here and then head over to the jointer. Now that they've been jointed, I'll just run them through the planer. It's the same process, joint, plane, joint, plane. It's yeah, I've got a few here, so just run them through. It took me a few minutes, but they were nice and flat by the time it was all said and done. After the jointer, I'm just using 120 grit with the sander here, and I like to do the full strip because it's just a bit easier rather than all the individual coasters. And now I'm just cutting them to the final length. Basically, I'm measuring the width, and that's what I set my stop block to. I just put in a piece of 1/4 inch MDF just underneath to prevent any tear up. Now the last piece, it was just a little bit too tight to use on the miter saw, so I did end up just taking that piece over to the table saw. I started hand sanding here, and after about a minute of sanding I realized, yeah, no, this is no bueno. So I just take them over to my spindle belt sander and just end up doing that way. It makes pretty quick work of them. Now I did clean up the edges just a little bit more with some sandpaper because there was a few uneven corners and what have you, and I just kind of broke them down a bit. So yeah, fun hand sanding, most enjoyable task of all woodworkers. Now it's finally finished where you can really see the grain pop and what have you. Now I'm using just a mixture of polyurethane, some boiled linseed oil, and some mineral spirits, about a 30% ratio of each there, and they turn out pretty good. Now I know there's some people that want to go straight polyurethane, straight, I don't know, Osmo hard wax oil or spray urethane, and really I think whatever you have on hand that's quick and easy, that's what you can use. I think I just did one coat, saturated them pretty good, and then just when they were all done, I just wiped them off. Well, that pretty much wraps up this episode's video. Now, I'm really happy how these turned out with the combination of the different woods and the grains of them. They do look quite charming. Now, it's a great way to use up scrap, as I've mentioned before. Now, these did take quite a bit of time for me because I had a lot of small scraps, but if you did have some bigger pieces and they were pre-milled, it would take a lot less time and you could batch out quite a few of them, and by the time you're all said and done, you could probably end up with quite a few sets. And if you sold them, say for $50, $60 at a farmer's market, a craft sale, something like that, you could easily recoup your costs of the time and that leftover material. So, like again, weird, odd-sized shaped stuff that's small, you could use them in crafts or sell them at craft sales. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you on the next video. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe, share, and all that good stuff. Thanks. Talk to you later. I'm not going to talk to you later. Ray, you're in the way, Ray!